Maboe is one of those little villages in the middle of nowhere, where everybody has too many interesting beliefs. And right now, I was at the end of my wits with the standard ones wetting themselves because they are too afraid to go to the girls' bathroom. Because Pinky Pinky will get them. I had tried to explain that it was all made up stories, but everyone had an older sister or an aunt who knew someone who had encountered Pinky Pinky. I walked into the staff room with a sigh. The elder teacher, Mrs. Johannes, looked at me with sympathy. Those standard ones sure will suck the joy out of your day sometimes. Now, they aren't going to the bathroom on their own because there is Pinky Pinky there. I don't blame them. Don't tell me you believe that hogwash. Maybe it's hogwash, but there is certainly something in there. The air feels wrong. Mrs. Johannes, I was trying my very best to not roll my eyes. I am telling you, girl. This place is old. Very old. The buildings still remember the history, the crimes. Crimes? A long time ago, there were crimes around schools. Girls attacked in the toilets. Teachers started warning students to not go to the toilets alone. A safety measure. Now, they say there was a bright girl. Pinky. She was obsessed with the color pink, and she loved playing near the then bright pink school toilets during break time. She sighed sadly. A man. One of the maintenance guys in the school enticed her away with a pink hairband, took her in the girls' toilet and assaulted her, then murdered her. She sighed sadly. He was scared the body could give evidence that would lead to him, so he poured a drain-declogging chemical all over her. Her skin was melted when they found her. She looked almost pink. He was eventually caught, but that place hasn't been right since. And that was 40 years ago. I had just started teaching when it happened. So people believe it's haunted? I don't know, girl. All I know is I cried when I was transferred back here again 5 years ago. And I am happy I am retiring end of month. Those toilets aren't right at all. I didn't want to argue. People with deep beliefs in the paranormal can never be convinced. But my students still had a chance. I could still teach them the difference between reality and fiction. My name is Ami Moala, and I moved to this remote village 3 months ago to teach Standard 1 at Maboe Primary School. Fresh out of university, full of progressive ideas about rural education, I thought I'd be the change these children needed. I'd read all the right books, attended all the right seminars. I knew about addressing learning gaps, about trauma-informed teaching, about creating safe spaces. The girls' toilet situation bothered me from day one. The building stood about 50 meters from the main classrooms, a squat concrete structure with a rusted green roof and walls that had faded from pink to a sickly gray. Every day, without fail, little girls would wet themselves rather than go there alone. 7-year-olds would cry, their small faces twisted in genuine terror, begging their friends to accompany them. Even then, they'd run the entire way, holding hands, singing loudly as if noise could ward off evil. I thought it was cruel, the way fear had colonized their small bodies. I'd lecture them about the psychology of urban legends, about how we project our fears onto imaginary monsters when the real monsters are poverty, inadequate infrastructure, and societal violence. I had all the answers. I had statistics. I had reason. Last Tuesday changed everything. I'd taken over the traditional dance group, my attempt to connect with the culture, to give back. The regional competition was Saturday, and the costumes needed work. After the last child left at 4:30, I stayed behind in the hall, hand-stitching beads onto a skirt, adjusting the fit of a headpiece. The work was meditative. I lost track of time. When I finally looked up, the windows had gone dark. My phone read 7:53 p.m. The sun had set completely, and the school had taken on that particular quality of emptiness that only abandoned buildings possess. The silence felt thick, textured, like something I could touch. I needed to use the toilet, badly. I walked to the administration building, but of course it was locked. Mr. Chanza, the principal, had left at 5 as always, taking his keys with him. I stood there for a moment, my bladder pressing insistently, looking toward the main gate a quarter-mile away, then back at the girls' toilets, now barely visible in the darkness. Don't be ridiculous, I told myself. You're a grown woman, an educated woman. There's no such thing as pinky pinky. I started walking. The grounds were darker than I'd expected. The school's two security lights had both burned out weeks ago, and no one had replaced them yet. My phone's flashlight carved a thin tunnel through the blackness as I crossed the field. Grass whispered against my ankles. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, then fell silent in a way that seemed abrupt. Wrong. The toilet block loomed ahead, darker than the darkness around it. I pushed it open. The smell hit me first, not the expected odor of school toilets, but something else underneath. Something sweet and rotten, like fruit left too long in the sun, like meat left in the heat. The air felt wrong, too thick, too warm, pressing against my skin like wet hands. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating 6 stall doors, all slightly ajar, and a row of sinks with taps that dripped in syncopated rhythm. Drip, 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 drip. A giggle. Or at least I thought I heard a giggle. Hello? My voice sounded small, foolish. Who was I expecting to answer? The stalls were empty. I chose the third one. The middle felt safest somehow, and locked the door. The metal latch felt greasy under my fingers. As I relieved myself, I kept my eyes on the gap beneath the door, watching for... What? Nothing. There was nothing to watch for. I was washing my hands when I heard singing. A child's voice, high and sweet, coming from somewhere behind me. I spun around, water dripping from my hands, heart suddenly hammering. The stalls were still empty, still slightly ajar, moving gently as if in a breeze I couldn't feel. The voice sang a playful tune about her name and wanting to play, each word dripping with false innocence. Who's there? My voice cracked. This isn't funny. School's closed. You need to go home. The singing stopped. The silence that followed was worse. I moved toward the door, moving quickly now. My rational mind struggling to provide explanations. A child had hidden here playing a prank. That was all. Just a prank. I'd find them, call their parents, there'd be consequences. The main door slammed shut. The sound was like a gunshot in the enclosed space. I ran to it, grabbed the handle, pulled. It didn't budge. I pulled harder, throwing my weight backward, the metal cutting into my palms. Locked, from the outside. Impossible. Help! I screamed, pounding on the door. Someone help me. I'm locked in, but who would hear? The school was in the middle of nowhere. The nearest house was 1/2 kilometer away. Everyone knew the school was empty after dark. No one came here after dark. Behind me, in the darkness of the stalls, I heard movement. The slow scrape of something being dragged across concrete. My flashlight flickered. Once, twice. And in that stuttering light, I saw her. She stood in the doorway of the last stall. A child, maybe 6 years old. Naked except for what looked like melted pink skin, stretched too tight over 2 sharp bones. Her face was a horror of smooth, burned flesh, featureless except for 2 black holes where eyes should have been, and a mouth that split her face too wide, filled with teeth that were too white, too many, filed to points. My mind tried to reject what I was seeing, tried to make it make sense. A burn victim, I thought desperately. A child who'd been hurt, who needed help. She tilted her head at an angle that was wrong, that made her neck look broken, and smiled wider. You don't believe, she said, and her voice was no longer singing, no longer childlike. It came from everywhere and nowhere, from the walls themselves, from inside my own skull. Everyone believes when they meet me. Everyone believes in the end. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My entire body had frozen, every instinct screaming at me to run, but where? Where could I run? She took a step forward and her body moved wrong, joints bending in directions they shouldn't, like she was a puppet being jerked on strings. Her pink skin rippled, and I realized it wasn't skin at all, but something else. Something that moved independently. something alive and crawling. "Stay back," I whispered, pressing myself against the door. "Please, please stay back." "Do you have something pink?" she asked, taking another step, her movements becoming more fluid now, more predatory. "Pink panties? Pink money? Pink anything for Pinky Pinky?" I shook my head, unable to speak, tears streaming down my face. "Then we play," she said, and lunged. I threw myself sideways into the row of sinks, my hip slamming into porcelain with a crack that sent pain exploding through my body. She missed me by inches. Her hand, if you could call it a hand, that mess of too many fingers. 2 long nails like rusted razors, raking across the door where my head had been, leaving deep gouges in the metal that shrieked and sparked. I scrambled backward on hands and knees, my phone clattering away, its light spinning crazily across the ceiling. She turned toward me with that horrible broken doll movement, and in the chaotic light, I saw her face shift. The features rippled like water, reforming into something that looked almost human, almost like a little girl, before melting back into that featureless horror. "What are you?" I sobbed. "I'm what they made me," she said, her voice a chorus of children screaming. "I'm fear. I'm protection. To keep the girls from going to the toilets alone." She reached for me, and this time I couldn't dodge fast enough. Her fingers closed around my ankle, and where she touched, my skin burned with a cold fire that made me scream. She was impossibly strong, dragging me across the concrete floor toward the nearest toilet stall. "No. No, please." She pulled me into the stall, and I grabbed at the door frame, my fingernails breaking against the metal, leaving bloody streaks. My free leg kicked at her face, connected with a wet crunch, but she didn't let go. She didn't even flinch. With one violent yank, she pulled me to the toilet. I watched in horror as the water inside began to swirl, not draining but opening, expanding, the porcelain stretching impossibly wide like a mouth. The water turned pink, then red, then black, and from its depths came a light that wasn't light. A sick, pulsing glow the color of infected flesh. "Time to play," she whispered, and shoved my head into the bowl. The world inverted. I was falling, tumbling through space that had no direction, no up or down. The air was gone, replaced by something thick and viscous that I couldn't breathe, but somehow didn't drown in. My lungs burned. My eyes burned. My skin felt like it was being flayed from my body by invisible hands. And then I hit the ground. I landed hard on my hands and knees, gasping, coughing up thick pink fluid that tasted of copper and rot. When I could finally see again, when I could finally force my eyes to focus, I wished desperately that I couldn't. I was in a bathroom, but not the one I'd left. This bathroom stretched in all directions, impossibly vast, the walls curving away into darkness that my eyes couldn't penetrate. The floor was wet, covered in that same pink fluid I'd coughed up, and it moved sluggishly, alive, forming patterns that hurt to look at. The stalls, there must have been hundreds of them, thousands, were made of flesh instead of metal, pulsing and breathing, their doors opening and closing like mouths gasping for air. The light came from nowhere and everywhere, that same infected pink glow that made everything look diseased, rotting. And the smell. Oh God. The smell. Decay and sweetness and burning hair and something underneath it all that was worse than any of those things. Something primal and wrong that made my hindbrain scream. But worst of all were the girls. They stood throughout the space, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all frozen in place like statues. Little girls in school uniforms, their skin the same melted pink as Pinky Pinky's, their faces locked in expressions of terror that had lasted so long it had become something beyond fear. Something broken. Each one bore the marks of their death. The girl nearest to me had a rope around her neck, her head tilted at an impossible angle. Another had deep slashes across her wrists, pink fluid still dripping slowly from the wounds that would never heal. A third girl was simply hollow, her torso a gaping cavity showing nothing inside. Another was covered in burns, her skin blackened and cracked, her mouth open in an eternal scream. And their eyes. Their eyes were the worst. Not black holes like Pinky Pinky's, but human eyes. Aware eyes. Eyes that saw me and knew me and pleaded silently for a mercy that would never come. Welcome. Pinky Pinky's voice echoed through the space, coming from all the girls at once. Welcome to where we play forever. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. The pink fluid on the floor had thickened, wrapping around my ankles like hands, pulling me down. I fell to my knees, and when my hands touched the ground, I felt things moving beneath the surface. Fingers, teeth, bones. The girls began to move. It started slowly, their heads turning toward me in unison with wet clicking sounds. Then their bodies followed, jerking and twitching, their movements puppet-like and wrong. The girl with the rope around her neck walked toward me on legs that bent backward. The burned girl crawled on all fours, her spine arching impossibly high. The hollow girl's cavity opened wider, and I could see things inside now. Writhing things with too many legs. They were changing. As they moved, their bodies began to shift and twist, their pink skin splitting to reveal what was underneath. The rope-necked girl's jaw unhinged, dropping open until it touched her chest, revealing rows and rows of needle teeth. Her arms elongated, fingers fusing together into blade-like appendages. The burned girl's charred skin peeled back, and beneath it was something made of exposed muscle and bone. Something that shouldn't be able to move but did, scuttling toward me like a spider made of meat. The hollow girl was the worst. Things emerged from her chest cavity. Arms, heads. Things that were neither, all pink and wet and screaming. She became a mass of limbs and faces, each one crying out in a voice that might have once been human. I finally found my feet and ran. The bathroom shifted around me as I fled, the stalls rearranging themselves, doors slamming open and shut, the flesh walls contracting and expanding like I was inside some massive breathing organism. The girls pursued, their footsteps a cacophony of wet slapping sounds and scraping bone. I could hear them behind me getting closer. Could hear their breathing. Ragged, wet, desperate. Could hear them calling out in voices that sounded almost like my students. Ms. Ami, why didn't you believe? Miss Ami, we tried to warn you. Bad things happen to girls who go to the toilets alone, Ms. Ami. Ms. Ami, play with us forever. I turned a corner and came face to face with a mirror that took up the entire wall. But the reflection wasn't me. It was myself as one of them. My skin turned pink and melted, my eyes hollow, my mouth too wide, a slash across my throat showing how I would die. I screamed and fell backward, landing in the pink fluid that was now ankle deep. Hands grabbed me. So many hands. Small hands, child-sized, but strong with an unnatural strength. They pulled me down into the fluid, and I went under, choking, drowning in that thick, viscous substance that tasted of death. Through the pink murk, I could see them surrounding me, their transformed bodies pressing in from all sides. Faces loomed close. Half melted, half human, all wrong. They reached for me, their fingers splitting my skin, their teeth finding purchase in my flesh. The pain was exquisite, overwhelming, and I knew with absolute certainty that this was how I would die. This was how I would become one of them, another statue in this endless pink hell, another warning that no one would heed. Something wrapped around my throat and began to squeeze. My vision began to fade, black spots swimming in the pink. I could feel my consciousness slipping away, feel myself becoming less, becoming one of them. And then I saw it. A light. Not the sick pink glow that permeated this place, but real light. Yellow-white and pure, cutting through the murk like a blade. It was distant, far above me, but growing closer, brighter. The hands holding me loosened slightly. The pressure on my throat eased. The girls made sounds like wounded animals, retreating from the light, their bodies smoking where the rays touched them. I reached for it, stretching my arm up through the fluid, my fingers breaking the surface. The light blazed brighter, and suddenly I was being pulled upward, yanked from the clutching hands with violent force. I rose through the pink fluid, through the impossible bathroom, through layers of reality that peeled away like skin. The girls' screams followed me, a chorus of rage and loss and something that might have been envy. And then I gasped, my body convulsing, and I was back. Back in the real bathroom, lying on the cold concrete floor of the stall, covered in that pink fluid that was rapidly evaporating into steam. My clothes were torn, my skin covered in scratches and bruises and burns. My throat ached, my lungs burned. But I was alive. Ah. I looked up, my vision blurry, and saw her. Pinky crouched beside me like a child who'd just had her favorite toy taken away. She was pouting, her too wide mouth turned down at the corners. "Too bad the sun came out," she said, her voice almost petulant. "We were having so much fun. But don't worry, Miss Ami. We can play again. Anytime you use the toilet when it gets dark, we can play. Not just this toilet. Any toilet. I'll always be waiting." Terror flooded through me, cold and absolute. I tried to speak, to beg, to scream, but no sound would come out. My throat was too damaged, my voice gone. She reached out and touched my face gently, almost tenderly, and where her fingers brushed my skin, I felt that cold fire again. "I'll see you tonight," she whispered, "or tomorrow night, or the night after. Eventually, everyone has to come back. Eventually, everyone comes alone. And then we play forever." The bathroom door burst open with a bang that made me jump. Light flooded in, real morning light, beautiful and normal and impossible. I could see dust motes dancing in the beams. 2 girls stood in the doorway, frozen in shock. Joy, the head girl, a serious, smart Standard 7 student who helped around the school, and another girl whose name I couldn't remember. They stared at me with expressions of pure horror, taking in my torn clothes, the scratches, the burns, the pink fluid evaporating from my skin in wisps of steam. She, Pinky got her. She breathed the world in terror. But she is still breathing. The other girl replied, "I thought Pinky killed. What if Pinky is still here?" The head girl went sheet white, stumbling backward. But instead of running, instead of screaming, she did something that shocked me more than anything that had happened that night. She fumbled in her pocket with shaking hands and pulled out a packet of pink tissues. "Ms. Ami," she shouted, her voice high with terror but steady with purpose. "You have to give her something pink for her to let you go. Give Pinky the tissues. Now. You have to give her something pink or she won't let you go." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely control them, but I reached out and took the tissues Joy threw to me. The packet felt impossibly heavy, like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I turned to Pinky, who was watching me with those empty black eyes, her head tilted in that horrible wrong way. Please," I managed to croak. "Here. Pink. For you." For a long moment, she just stared at the tissues. Then, slowly, her hand reached out. Her fingers closed around the packet, and when they did, her entire body seemed to shift, becoming more solid, more real, more pleased. She smiled, and it was the most horrible thing I'd ever seen. Genuine joy mixed with predatory satisfaction. "Thank you, Ms. Ami," she said sweetly, her voice once again that of a small child. "But it's so sad we can't play anymore." I was having such a good time. She clutched the tissues to her chest like a beloved doll. "But that's okay. There will be another one. There's always another one." As she spoke, her body began to fade, becoming translucent in the morning light. But even as she disappeared, I could still hear her voice, singing that terrible song, the words echoing through the bathroom and into my bones. "My name is Pinky. I live in the toilets. Do you want to play with me?" And then she was gone. I collapsed, sobbing, and felt Joy's arms around me, pulling me out of the stall, dragging me toward the door and the blessed sunlight beyond. The other girl was crying, praying in a language I didn't understand but somehow felt in my soul. They got me outside, laid me in the grass that was wet with dew, and I looked up at the sky that was blue and normal and real. Joy knelt beside me, tears streaming down her face, clutching my hand. "Why did you go alone?" she whispered. "Why didn't you listen?" Everyone knows. Everyone knows you never go to the girls' toilets alone, especially after dark. I tried to answer, tried to explain about my rationality, my education, my disbelief. But all that came out was a broken sob, because now I knew. Now I believed. 3 days later, my hands still shaking, the pink scar tissue on my arms and neck refusing to heal. The doctors can't explain my injuries. The police think I was attacked by a person, not a thing. The education board wants to dismiss it all as a mental breakdown. They put me on leave, pending a clear mental health sheet. But Joy knows. The other children know. The teachers who've worked here for years know. Pinky Pinky is real.